In the original Dragon Ball manga, Goku never stacked the Kaioken technique on top of his original Super Saiyan form due to the fatal effects it would have on his body. He was only able to use the Super Kaioken in the afterlife because he was dead, and also it was entirely filler. But what if Goku was forced to use the Super Kaioken? Despite knowing how lethal it would be, what if Goku had no other choice and had to use it against Cell during the Cell games? How would their fight go down? How would this affect the story moving forward? There's no better place to begin this story than by looking at the year Goku and Gohan spent in the hyperbolic time chamber. In the original series, Goku's primary goal was to train Gohan up and get him to transform into a Super Saiyan, because that way, the two of them could properly train with each other without needing to hold back. As we all know, the two eventually managed to master the original Super Saiyan, surpassing both Super Saiyans Grade 2 and Grade 3 by obtaining the Grade 4 form that we saw during the Cell games. During their year in the time chamber, Goku saw firsthand how much potential Gohan had, and knowing that his true power came through whenever he got angry, that's why he pushed Gohan to fight against Cell, because he knew that Gohan would be the only one capable of defeating him. But in this scenario, that doesn't happen. It's still possible that Goku masters the original Super Saiyan in this timeline, but the major turning point here is that Gohan doesn't, at least not while they're in the chamber. Of course, Gohan is still capable of transforming into a basic Super Saiyan, but he never fully grasps how to master it this time around, and because of it, Goku never gets to see the full extent of his potential. Months pass in the time chamber and very little progress is made towards Gohan's mastery of Super Saiyan, so Goku starts getting anxious that neither of them will be able to beat Cell, so he spends time focusing on himself. As usual, he taps into grades 2 and 3 but realizes that they're way too bulky and wouldn't be much help in a fight. However, a light bulb goes off in Goku's head, and he comes to the conclusion that the Kaioken might be a way for him to quickly get stronger if he were to combine it with the original Super Saiyan form, because the power multipliers for both of them would be insane when combined. However, upon using the Super Kaioken, a quick shock of pain is sent throughout Goku's body, forcing him back into his base form after just a few seconds. Gohan rushes to his father's side and notices that he's breathing extremely heavily, almost as if his life just flashed before his eyes. Goku says that everything's alright, he just underestimated how much of a toll Super Kaioken would have. Not realizing that the two of them would actually be lethal when used together, Goku's kinda disappointed that Super Kaioken might be a dud, but in typical Goku fashion, he's not willing to give up the idea entirely, as he only plans on using it if absolutely necessary. For the remainder of their time in the chamber, Goku separately trains up his Super Saiyan forms and the Kaioken technique, and he's able to master Super Saiyan like normal, and because of his prolonged exposure to the Kaioken, his stronger body can handle it easier. However, he still feels the strain when using it for long periods of time. But while Goku has gotten significantly stronger, Gohan was never able to master Super Saiyan, so he exits the chamber in his base form. Like normal, the two are caught up on the Cell situation, and Goku realizes that things are way worse than he thought they'd be. Unlike his main counterpart, Goku isn't as calm and collected and learns just how powerful Cell truly is, so he encourages Gohan to keep on training with him in preparation for the Cell games rather than taking a break. The two continue their training alongside Piccolo, and eventually Goku brings Dende to Earth so he can make new Dragon Balls. By the time the Cell games roll around, Goku has more faith in Gohan, but he feels like he might have to beat Cell by himself. As usual, Goku's the first to go up against Cell because nobody else can match up against him, but because he's not testing Cell's strength to see if Gohan could take care of him, he's taking this fight more seriously, and as a result, it lasts much longer. Eventually, Goku reaches his limit, and no matter how strong he's gotten, Cell is much more powerful. Even with the Super Kaioken under his sleeve, which based on power multipliers alone, would be enough to match Cell or possibly even beat him, Goku knows the cost of using it, and if he were to die in this situation, there'd be nobody else left to stop Cell. Pushed into a corner, Goku struggles with the choices of whether to use Super Kaioken or if he should pass the fight on to someone else. Keep in mind, even if he never saw the extent of Gohan's potential in the time chamber, he still knows that Gohan is capable of breaking through his limits if he gets mad enough, so Goku ultimately decides to take a risk by encouraging Gohan to fight. Unlike his main counterpart, who was confident in Gohan enough to give Cell a senzu bean, this Goku is much more cautious and internally struggles with his decision. Rather than tossing Cell a senzu bean, Goku takes one for himself and holds onto the bag in case of an emergency, tying it onto his belt. Now, even though Cell is a little bit fatigued from his fight with Goku, Gohan is no match for him in this timeline, so he's able to slowly regain energy, and like normal, Cell is tossing Gohan around trying to make him mad, but since Gohan is much weaker in this timeline, the beatdown is much more brutal. Cell grabs Gohan and pulls him into a bear hug, and Goku and the others look on in horror, with Piccolo criticizing Goku for his decision. Goku still tries to explain his reasoning to the others, saying that if Gohan gets mad enough, he'll get stronger than any of them, but Piccolo debunks that idea by telling him that Gohan doesn't have that fighting spirit, and if anything, Cell will kill him before he's able to get mad. Now in the main series, this is when Goku attempts to go back into the fight, but is interrupted when Cell steals the bag of senzu beans and then creates the Cell Juniors. However, this time around, having already eaten a senzu bean, Goku lunges back into the fight before Cell gets the chance to release Gohan and uses the Super Kaioken in a quick burst to knock Cell away from his son. Goku turns off the Kaioken, reverting back to his basic Super Saiyan form, and Gohan looks up at his father, amazed that he's still standing. The last time that Goku used Super Kaioken, it brought him to his knees, but this time, Goku looks perfectly fine. Goku explains that since he trained up both Super Saiyan and Kaioken separately, his body naturally adjusted to both of them, and since this mastery of Super Saiyan calms his emotions, it's a bit easier to combine it with the emotional turmoil of the Kaioken, but he still has to be careful when using it. Goku then apologizes to Gohan, saying that he made a terrible mistake by throwing him into the fight, and that he's proud of him for getting as strong as he did, and being willing to help even if Cell was much more powerful than him. He says that the time that they spent in the chamber was one of the best years of his life, and he was inspired by watching Gohan tirelessly try to master Super Saiyan, and that's why he's not going to give up this time. And with that, Goku charges back into the fight against Cell, activating the Super Kaioken. Angry that Goku broke the rules of the Cell games by bringing himself back into the competition, Cell shouts that he'll be the first to pay the price and that the Earth would be next. During their fight, plenty of ki blasts are thrown around and lots of punches and kicks are exchanged as Goku rapidly bounces across the sky fighting Cell, using the Super Kaioken in quick succession by turning it on to increase his speed and strength, and off to maintain stamina. Gohan's amazed at just how powerful Goku had gotten by using the Super Kaioken, because even by using a simple 2x multiplier, it's almost like he had an advantage over Cell, like what would have been happening in the main timeline if Gohan achieved Super Saiyan 2. But even though he was amazed by Goku's fighting, Gohan had a look of horror on his face because he knows that Goku can't keep this up for long. Eventually, even with all this training under his belt, Goku's body wouldn't be able to take it and he'd die, and then so would his friends, and then the rest of the planet. As he watches Goku and Cell fight in the sky, images of Goku falling to his knees in the time chamber flash in Gohan's head, and he starts feeling his heart pumping. Meanwhile, Goku's laying a beat down on Cell because not only was the Super Kaioken able to match his strength, but he was still fatigued from their last fight since Goku never gave him a senzu bean. But even though he was beating Cell, Goku's body was starting to feel the weight of using the Super Kaioken. As the fight progressed, Goku was using the technique for longer periods of time, and it was slowly eating away at his body. Every time it got to the point where he'd almost drop back to his base form, Goku would take a senzu bean from the bag on his belt and would pop it in his mouth, powering back up to 100% while the fight was still going. He'd keep doing this until the bag was eventually empty, forcing him to drop back down to his basic Super Saiyan form. Forced back down to the ground, both Goku and Cell were breathing heavily, with their fight nearing its end. Cell begins to laugh at Goku's expense, saying that he had him on the ropes for a second, but even with the Kaioken technique, he still couldn't win. As Cell kept talking on and on about how much more powerful he was, Goku tuned him out and looked in the direction of Gohan, who was clenching his fists and gritting his teeth as he watched his father fighting to his literal death. A smile spread across Goku's face, realizing that he still had one trump card left up his sleeve, even if it cost him his life. With no senzu beans in his pouch, Goku activates Super Kaioken one last time, feeling a jolting pain in his heart. He starts to charge a Kamehameha, and Cell laughs, shouting at Goku that he's being a fool. Goku continues charging the beam attack as Cell begins walking toward him, believing that Goku will fall over dead before he even gets the chance to fire the attack, but much to his surprise, Goku fires the beam with all his might. The Super Kaioken Kamehameha completely engulfs Cell with such speed and blinding light that everybody watching the fight has to close their eyes and brace for the wind. A horrified Gohan watches as the beam slowly fades away, and once the dust settles, he notices that Cell is still alive. Just like what happened with the instant Kamehameha, his entire torso was blasted away, but his legs were still standing. As Cell tried regenerating, which was much more difficult since he was low on energy, Gohan noticed his father's body lying on the ground. Goku had pushed himself way too far with the Super Kaioken, and in the end, it killed him. Now fully regenerated, Cell was no longer in the laughing mood. Looking down at Goku's body, he's both angered and saddened that the fight had to end the way it did. He never even got to properly kill Goku for himself. The fool went and did it himself. But Cell didn't have much time to look down at Goku's lifeless body because instead he felt a massive surge of energy behind him, and once he turned around, he saw an angered Gohan pushed over the edge. Like normal, Gohan goes Super Saiyan 2 and the fight that follows is pretty similar to how it plays out in the main series, but it's much quicker since Cell is in a weaker state, and Gohan is now more inspired to end the fight rather than to make him suffer. However, you might be wondering how this story differs from the original because it still ends with Goku dying and Gohan going Super Saiyan 2. Well, Android 16 is still alive in this timeline, and because the Cell Juniors never appeared, 16 never had to try self-destructing himself to finish off Cell. Instead, Goku's death served as Gohan's catalyst for transforming. So with that, our story ends on a bittersweet note. Goku ends up dying as a result of pushing Super Kaioken too far, but Gohan still manages to transform into a Super Saiyan 2, and Android 16 is still alive for future story arcs. How will he change the story of Dragon Ball moving forward? Should I make another What If series focusing on him surviving the Cell games? Let me know down in the comments if you want to see that story. And as always, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button and share it with your friends. I'd really appreciate it. While you're at it, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I'm InnovativeJdawg, and until my next video, I will be seeing all of you Dragon Ball fans later. See ya!